Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Good Boxing Podcast with your host, Josh Sias. And I just want to announce something spectacular that's happening in the boxing world. Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence is signed, and it's coming to us in August. Now, Manny Pacquiao, you've been stringing us along on who you're going to fight for a while now, and it's jumped around. It's been Ryan Garcia, it's been Mikey Garcia, it's been who else was it? If I'm not mistaken, yeah, Terrence Crawford and even Errol Spence, and then it went back to Mikey Garcia. So things are jumping around. You're not sure. I don't know what happened, but regardless of the fact, we have the fight. We know who Manny's coming back to fight to, and I don't even have words for how excited I am for this fight. Manny Pacquiao is a legend. You guys know the legend of Manny Pacquiao, eight division, rather, world champion, president. He's fought the best of the best. He's fought legends in almost every era, and arguably had one of the biggest upsets of a couple years ago. Sure, it was over 2 years ago when he shocked the world and beat Keith Thurman, but not a lot of people had Manny Pacquiao coming out of that fight the winner, me included. I thought Keith Thurman was going to beat him. And when you look back at that fight, it was a good ass fight from both guys. Manny Pacquiao took some heavy shots from Keith Thurman, but Manny Pacquiao did prevail. And if you look back at that fight, it was a split decision. So a lot of people don't really kind of recall that. But Manny Pacquiao had a spectacular performance. I didn't think he was going to win that fight. And I thought he won the fight. I didn't think Keith Thurman won by any means. And one of the judges probably had it the wrong way. But if you look back, it was a close fight. But 2 years later, a lot of rest. Is rust going to be an issue? Errol Spence, we already know the car accident. He came back, fought a killer in Danny Garcia, and massacred Garcia. I'm going to sit here and say that he handled and thoroughly dominated one of the hardest punchers in 147 pounds right now. Danny Garcia's left hook was a non factor. He took it well, and Errol Spence basically asserted his dominance at the hottest and most competitive division in boxing, 147 pounds, the welterweight division, where you have all the killers. We already know Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. The list goes on and on. Virgil Ortiz, you want to add? Keep the list going. 147 is hot, right? You got Ugas, Porter, even Keith Thurman if he wants to come around. I know he's going through some stuff, but Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence. Can Manny Pacquiao truthfully win this fight? And I'm going to sit here and go out and say, right now, I don't know. I truthfully have a bunch of different scenarios where Pacquiao can win. But at the same time, I also have scenarios where I think Errol Spence is going to just be a little too much for Manny Pacquiao. And that's nothing to take away from Manny Pacquiao because you cannot disqualify the great one when he's chasing greatness. We're not talking about a 43 from 1970, right? We're talking about a guy that's well rested. You got the technology supplements, the way people train nowadays, where you're basically preserving your body. Um, Science has improved a lot when it comes to restoration and preservation of your body, right? But Manny Pacquiao is a throwback fighter. He has a bunch of good things that he does in the ring, fantastic footwork, fantastic hand speed. Still, even at 43, like Manny Pacquiao is going to have the speed advantage in terms of pure ballistic, fast twitch hand speed. But this may have been the fight on the other side that may be a little much for Pacquiao. He's fighting someone that's substantially bigger. Errol Spence cuts from about 160 down to 147. I mean, he used to walk around 180 and really drain. But ever since the accident, he's been taking care of himself, and you see he's making a more conscientious effort to be on weight and not really balloon up. So you're gonna have a guy looking to have his first marquee headlining fight. Yes, he's fought Mikey Garcia. That wasn't Manny Pacquiao. He hasn't fought a level fighter. right? This is the creme de la creme now. Manny Pacquiao may not be the old Manny Pacquiao that fought De La Hoya, that was sharp, sharp, sharp. Even the Manny Pacquiao that fought Floyd Mayweather Jr., I know they're saying his shoulder, besides the point. But in terms of sharpness, in terms of age, in terms of prime, this is not that Pacquiao that's AA plus. You're fighting a lesser version. So I think maybe Errol got him at the right time. And I think Pacquiao has seen Errol Spence just like Mikey Garcia has seen Errol Spence, and he looks beatable. But that's the thing about Errol. Errol looks fundamental. He looks kind of one dimensional. He looks like a code that you should be able to solve. Oh, I can handle that. But the question is going to be, can an older version of Manny Pacquiao handle the guy that you know is going to walk you down, the guy that stood in there with Sean Porter, who's strong, who is a big 147 pounder, who has speed, who's ballistic. He's been in there with Danny Garcia. He's walked down the guys that no one wants to walk down. Even Kell Brook, right, moved up to 160 pounds to fight Triple G and was hurting Triple G with shots. He hurt him with an uppercut, so you know he has power. He walked Kell Brook down when Kell Brook was still Kell Brook. So Errol Spence is a different kind of demon, and I'm wondering as I break it down, I'll come up with more of a prediction. But this fight and the fact that Spence got it over Crawford is just making such a bad case for Terrence Crawford to even feel like he's the A side in a fight with Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence beats Manny Pacquiao. It props him up to fight Terrence Crawford and puts him in a position where, at this point, Crawford just leave Top Rank. Top Rank is dicking you around, and you keep trying to get these fights that you're never going to get. I mean, Manny Pacquiao got a fight with Errol Spence like this. And now Errol Spence, if he beats Manny Pacquiao, because I'm assuming Manny Pacquiao is going to be elevated to the super champion, given the fact that he's fighting for unification, I think they'll bump Ugas back down. And now he's no longer in recess. So Ugas hasn't fought, Manny Pacquiao hasn't fought, and now Manny Pacquiao is going to have a belt on the line. So Errol Spence is looking to kind of consolidate and monopolize all the belts in the division. So now you have 3-1. You're on the opposite end with Top Rank, who can't get you any fights, because at 147, who is Terrence Crawford going to fight? At this point, Virgil Ortiz is looking like the only guy he's going to end up fighting. I mean, it's looking like that's the guy he's going to end up fighting, or he has to fight Josh Taylor for undisputed at 140. And to me, that's a step going backwards. You already did the undisputed thing. You wanted to fight the big dog, the big fish, and now Pacquiao is getting the fight. You should have the fight with Pacquiao, because if both of you guys have two fights, two belts rather, then you could have that mega fight with Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence. But now Errol Spence is getting that big payday he wants. He's making money. He's going to have all the belts. Now Terrence Crawford's in a position where he can say what he wants, but you have no leverage. You're not going to be the bigger pay-per-view star because Errol Spence is going to face Manny Pacquiao. This fight's going to generate a monstrous amount of pay-per-views. We already know that. Everyone is going to go and support and watch this fight. So Terrence Crawford, you still haven't sold the big pay-per-view. You're going to have one belt. You're just it's kind of sad, honestly. I feel bad for him. But Manny Pacquiao is going to go out there and show you why, arguably, I got to say, Manny Pacquiao might be bigger than Canelo in terms of moving pay-per-views, because Canelo is the mega star. He is the biggest name in boxing, but I know Manny Pacquiao fighting Errol Spence, he's going to make more money than Canelo. I'm sorry. I know people don't want to hear that because Canelo is undoubtedly the pound for pound number one, but Errol Spence, Manny Pacquiao is going to do over a million buys, over 1.25 million buys. This is a mega fight, and Pacquiao can actually win. I think if he rolls back the clock and beats Errol Spence, now you're starting to make an argument for a mega legend. I know Pacquiao is a legend already, but if he beats Errol Spence when Errol's in his prime, this elevates the conversation. And I know people don't want to hear this, but Pacquiao, if he beats Errol Spence, is definitely not going to go after Terrence Crawford. He's going to go after Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is going to fight him. And I'm sorry to say that. I know people don't want to hear it, but Manny Pacquiao knows he wants to fight Floyd Mayweather. And Floyd Mayweather, If he comes back, I know he's doing that whole Logan Paul, Jake Paul thing, but he'll fight Pacquiao. He beat him already. He knows he can make 200, $300 million. If Pacquiao just beat Errol Spence, has 3 belts. Are you kidding me? Manny Pacquiao with 3 belts at 147 pounds? Things start to get interesting. So I just wanted to kind of tell you guys I'm excited for the fight. I think Errol Spence is going to win. Pacquiao could win, but I'm going to look at the fight more before I make my full prediction. But I think he bit off a little more than he could chew. But you know what? Who cares? Sometimes you're going to choke when you're trying to chase greatness. Who cares? Go for it, Pac. I love it. I love it. I love what PBC is doing. What a comeback, because during this pandemic, Triller, The Zone, Matchroom, Top Rank have been putting on all these shows that have, in my opinion, overshadowed PBC. I haven't seen a big PBC fight since Danny Garcia and Errol Spence. In that fight, yeah, I think it did well, but I don't think it's going to do nearly as well as or be nearly as big of an event as this. Right, I'm still waiting on that pay per view with Chris Arreola and Andy Ruiz, because who knows, maybe that sold well, but I doubt it. But this is undoubtedly right now the biggest fight of the year. Um, Fury Joshua isn't signed yet, so I'm not gonna sit here and say that won't be the biggest fight, because it is, right? Caleb Plant, Canelo, that's gonna be a big fight too. But this is just a massive fight in the most competitive division in boxing for potentially 3 belts. It's just getting crazy, and I want to thank Manny Pacquiao for taking that challenge. And I'm glad Errol is the one that's up for it, because Errol's gonna come prepared. He's ready. He's been dying for this opportunity. He literally almost died and changed his approach to training. So I'm super hyped to see how good Errol Spence is going to be against Manny Pacquiao. And I'm super excited to see Manny Pacquiao prepare for a killer, because he's going in with a killer. This isn't like Keith Thurman, good boxer, good puncher, but Errol Spence, is coming for Manny Pacquiao. He's trying to knock Pacquiao out, something that hasn't been done since Marquez. So we're going to see. Well, that's the episode for today. Let me know how you feel. Do you like the matchup? Who do you think is going to win? And follow on Instagram at Good Boxing Podcast. Also, the YouTube channel, Good Boxing Podcast. We're back. Let's go.